Hello friends, welcome to JavaFx GUI tutorial. Now you are watching a last part of the video, layout managers and anchor pan. So in this video we will see how to use anchor pan to anchor the controls on a specific edge of the container. So here in this example, if you see, we have a window, or we can state it's a stage, and in the stage we have a HBox container, then we have a vertical box container. So we already learned about HBox and VBox. We used these HBox and VBox with BorderPane. So this time, instead of using BorderPane, we will use anchor pan and place these HBox and VBox using the anchoring technique. And if you see here, we can anchor the box to a specific edge. Alright, we will see this in more detail when we go to the example, but this is what we are going to do. We will create a HBox with 2 button controls and VBox with 2 button controls. Then we will create a anchor pan. Then using the anchor pan, we will anchor the edges of the VBox and the horizontal box, so that when a stage resizes, the behavior of the VBox and the HBox will change. So all those we will see in detail when we proceed with the example. Anchor pan anchors the edges of child node with its own edge. So let's say this is the container. The container has one more container or a component button or node, we can say, in JavaFX world. So here there are 2 edges that comes into picture. If you see, this is the parent container, and let's say this is the button, and this is one edge, this is one edge in relation to the container and node. Similarly, this is one edge, this is one edge, right? The same way, there are 4 edges here, and container also will have 4 edges. So anchoring is the technique of fixing the edge in relation to the container's edge. So that's what called anchoring, and this anchoring will fix the location, or sometimes it will change the size of the contained child. So at this stage it may be confusing. Once you finish this video, you will get a clear picture of what is anchoring. So the anchoring technique helps how anchored child. So here if you see, this is the anchored child and this is the container. So how anchored childs are positioned and resized. Sometimes it will control the position, sometimes it resizes the container. So based on anchoring and which edge you are doing the anchoring, either the position will be fixed or the size will be changed. Both can happen. So below anchor pan method fixes the node to an edge. So this is the child, and you can fix the edge with the container by these methods. Set top anchor. Now let's state. Okay, we will see that in detail. For now we will look at the method set top anchor. So that means it will fix the top edge. Left anchor, this one. Set bottom anchor, this one, and set right anchor. So this, so you can make a combination of this method to fix a anchoring of edges. Now let us take node 1. So let's consider node 1 as the child, which is anchored to top edge by 10 unit offset. So that means this is the anchoring here, and we are asking to keep the distance of 10 edge always. So let's see this with an example. So here is the container, or we can say this is the anchor pan, and we have a child, and we are stating anchored to the top edge by distance 10, right? That means we are claiming this distance should be always 10. That means it is anchored on the top edge. So now let's state control is anchored on the top edge. Now if you resize it, since this button is fixed on the top edge, it will not move or it will not resize also. So the location is fixed here, if you see. So that's the default behavior. By default, all the controls are anchored towards the left and bottom. So if you resize, the position will not change. So let's state this is the node 1. We will call it as N1. Now let's look at other example. Let's take node 2, which is anchored to bottom edge by 10 unit offset. Now let's state that this is your control. I mean, this is the anchor pan and this one is the control, and it is anchored here, and the offset is 10. So this means even if you resize this height wise, let's state now you resized the form height wise. So if you resize the form height wise, if you see, since the bottom edge is fixed, when you are resizing it, the control will move with the resizing direction and it will stay here and maintains the anchoring edge of 10. So now let's take node 2, which is anchored to bottom edge by 10 unit offset. That means always this 10 unit offset will be fixed when you are resizing the form. That's why when you resize it height wise, you are resizing the edge, let's state, and you are resizing it, and this is the new size. And if you see, the button position is moved from here to this new location along with the size of the form, right? So this one is our node 2, which is anchored towards the bottom. Now let's take node 3, which is anchored to the right and top edge by 10 unit. So here we are anchoring it on 2 edges, and these edges are in the opposite direction. So you can anchor it in the adjacent edge also. So for example, this is the button, and you can anchor it this way also. That means when you move the form right side, the button will move towards the right. And if you want to keep something in the lower left always, then you have to anchor it towards right as well as bottom. That means if you move, the control will move the width wise, and if you increase the height, it will move height wise also. But if you cut down this, then it will move on the right side direction only, and it won't move when you resize the form height wise. But here what we are discussing is Let's take node 3, which is anchored to right as well as top edge, which is anchored to right and top edge. So anchored to right and top. So this is the example here. So the next example will be right and bottom. Anyhow, here we have taken like this. Let's go with this. So we are anchoring this 10 unit on the top side, then 10 unit on the right side. So now if you resize the form in this direction, the control will move along with the form. Why? Because it needs to keep the distance of 10 unit on the right side. Similarly, if you resize the height, the control will not move because it needs to stick to the top edge. Instead of 10 here, if you put, it should be fixed 120 unit here, then also it will maintain the if you put 120, then if you resize height wise, since it needs to maintain 120, it will move. That means you have to cut down this, and if you keep this way, then the button will move downwards as well, like we said here. Now sometimes you can anchor the button in opposite side also. Let's state a component is like this, and you put a 10 pixel here, you put a 10 pixel here and a 10 pixel here, and you anchored it in these two directions. Now if you resize the form, the control will also resize. Why? Because it is anchored on opposite direction. That means to keep the distance the same, it needs to resize the control. Or we can state this way also. This is some vertical box, VBox, let's assume like that, and you anchored it towards the top as well as bottom. And if you resize the form, then since it needs to keep the distance on both these edges, it will resize the VBox. You see. Now let's take node 4 anchored on opposite edges. That's what we discussed. Opposite edges means it will resize. So 10 pixel here, 10 pixel here. Now let's state you are resizing the form. So if you resize the form, this is node 4, node 3. Let's state you are resizing the form. You are reducing the width, and if you see, since it is anchored on left as well as right, and it needs to keep the same distance, it will resize the control. So that's the use of anchored pane. You can also even anchor it on all 4 edges, so the control will occupy the the control will get resized on both width and height wise if you anchored it on all 4 sides. So you can imagine a control placed on the BorderPane's center position. The control will be resized on width as well as height, right? The same behavior you can see with some borders around it based on your anchoring distance. So for this example, if you see, first we create a H box. So we call this as a H row pane, and we retrieve child nodes. We talked about H box and V box multiple times in our previous video. So here we create H box with the inserts 100, that means border 10. We are setting the border, then we are filling the background color. So if you see 6.3, that means we already discussed about this in our video number 6 or example 6 code snippet 3. You can refer there also. The same stuff only I'm using here. Once a hatchbox control is created, we are creating 2 button and adding it to the hatchbox. Similarly, so if you see, this is what we are creating. Similarly, we create a VBox. We're setting the background, different background this time for VBox compared to this one. Then we added 2 buttons, and you can see these 2 buttons here. This is hatchbox and VBox. Using these 2 layout pan, we can experiment how anchor pan behaves. So here we are creating the anchor pan, and we are retrieving the children just like what we did for our other container control. Here we make use of get children and retrieve the children, and we reference that as anchor pan controls. That means to anchor pan we can add our controls. And if you see anchor pan controls, this is observable list, right? This time if you see, we are using add all method. Previously we used add, right? You can also call add all method, and you can pass multiple nodes to this method. It can be any number of argument. So we can call this as a variable number of argument. And this time I'm passing 2 child. One is hrow pan, and you can reference that here, hrow pan, which is a collection of 2 button arranged horizontally. Then we call pan, that's a collection of 2 button arranged vertically. So we added these 2 container to our anchor pan, but we haven't yet set the anchoring, and we will do that now. And if you see anchor pan set bottom anchor for hrow pan, and we are fixing the distance of 5. Next, we use the same anchor pan, and we set top as well as right anchor for our vcall pan. So this is the vcall pan, and we are fixing a distance of 5 pixel for top as well as right. So that means a bottom anchor here for our hrow pan. If this is the container hrow pan, let's state this is 1 and this is 2. Hrow pan set bottom anchor 5. So this is where we are fixing that, and this distance is 5. Similarly for this one, set top anchor 5 and right anchor 5. This is the location for our vertical box, and this is 5 and this is 5. That's how we are anchoring it. For this one we set bottom anchor, so this one is 5. Alright, now we will go to the demo and experiment this. Once all this is set, we are creating the scene. For the scene we are setting the anchor pan. Now if you see anchor pan contains 2 pans. One is horizontal row and hrow pan and vcall pan. Hrow pan is a hbox and this one is vbox, and they are anchored to the edges. To the edges means to the edges of anchor pan, because anchor pan is what manages the primary stage. So this is the top level node, or we can say top level container. Top level container contains 2 more container. One is hrow pan and vcall pan, and its position and size are decided by these anchoring settings. So after setting all this, we set a title for our stage and we are displaying that. Now it's demo time. We will go to the demo. We will make some modification of code what we saw here in the previous slide, and we will study more when we are coding it. So now we will create a new file. We will name it as example 10 and anchor pen. And we will delete all this. So from our previous example, we created it and we are deleting the contents. So as already explained in the PowerPoint slide, if you see, we are creating the HBox first. So importing node, then importing observable list, import inserts, import background fill. Both we need to import, so I'm importing fill. Then there is a red squiggly here. We will import color from JavaFx. Then here we are importing the buttons. That's all. So in these two code snippet, if you see, our HBox is ready. You can also refer code snippet 6.4. That means we covered that here. So the same way here we already covered HBox, right, with the 5 buttons. This time I just took 2 buttons. Then we will also create VBox. That also we learned in our previous video. You can refer the 7.1 series of the video. Here I am importing VBox. Now we have both HBox and VBox ready. Each contains 2 buttons each. Now we are creating the anchor pan. Anchor pan is from JavaFx scene layout anchor pan. Anchor pan.getChildren add all. You can also use add method. For now I am adding only one pan, hrow pan. Here is hrow pan. And here is the hrow pan children, and it contains 2 buttons. And we just added only that to our anchor pan just to study its location and resizing behavior. Now let us set a tap anchor for so here we are anchoring the control hrow pan. Anchor pan dot set top anchor for hrow pan, and we are setting the distance as 10. Okay, anchor pan is ready. We are creating the scene and we are setting the primary stage dot set scene. Scene we are setting, and scene is constructed based on the anchor pan. We will attach this with a 10.6 itself. We will keep on modifying this piece of information. I mean 10.5 and 10.6 when required. We will fix this. And we will not modify this. We will be revisiting this multiple times. Alright, now we will build it. And we will run our example. And here, if you see, this is our H box, and the distance here is 10. Now we anchored our H box towards the top. So this entire portion is the anchor pane, just like BorderPane. Now our entire window is managed by anchor pane, and to our anchor pane we are anchoring this H box with a distance of 10. So this distance is 10. Since it needs to maintain that distance, if I resize it, if you see, it moves with the edge. So this is the default behavior, and if I resize it, here also it will resize. That's the default behavior. Now we will change this default behavior and study further, and you can see how much space this H box is occupying based on this background color. Now we will anchor it. Anchor means we will anchor the H row pane, H box, to the bottom edge with a distance of 10. Now you can look at the initial location. Previously we saw this border pane towards the top right. Now it is in the bottom. So if I resize the height, nothing happens. But if I resize the bottom edge, you can see the control is moving with this edge. Why? Because it is anchored towards the bottom and it needs to maintain this distance of 10. So if it needs to maintain that distance, if I move the bottom edge, it should move. Here it is hiding. Why? Because there is no anchoring here. Anchoring is only for bottom edge. That's why it is moving along with the edge. Alright. Now we will set this with top and right. This time, if you see, I am calling the set top anchor and set right anchor, and I am handing over our row pane. This time the location will change. See where the box is located. Now since it is anchored here, let me check whether it is anchored to the top. When I resize the height, the position will not change. Why? Because it is anchored towards this edge. But if I resize the top edge, that means if I move this way, the control will move. Here if you see, if I do like this, it won't move. But if I move here, it is resizing. Similarly here, no effect. The horizontal pan stays on the right side edge, but if I move this way, it will move with the edge, because it is anchored on these two edges, top as well as right. Right. Now we will anchor it on opposite edges, so top and right. Now here if you see, left and right edges, and same distance 10 on the left edge, 10 on the right edge. That means the control will get resized. Why? Because it is anchored on opposite edges. You can experiment this with the top and bottom also. Here I took left and right. Now we will run this. See how it is occupying. There is a 10 unit distance here and a 10 with the left. So left anchor as well as right anchor. Right. Now I am resizing and you can see the HBox also will resize. See how big the HBox is. Now it is resizing, right? Even if I resize this way, you can see it will resize. Right. Now the same HBox, I am anchoring it on all 4 edges. So now if you see, our HBox is going to occupy entire display area. See, and you see 10 gap on all 4 edges. Now I am resizing this way, all this way. See, it is resizing, right? So it's occupying the entire area because we anchored it on all 4 edges. Alright, now we will add our column pane also. Now you may got a good idea of how anchoring will work. So this edge, let me show. This time I am keeping it as a 50, and you will see more distance between all 4 edges. Previously we kept 10, right? We will run this one more time, so you will know what is the meaning of this as a second parameter. Run the file. You see. All right. Now we will add VBox as well. Now our anchor pane contains both the href pane and call pane. We experimented this, right? We will remove this. Now you can look at the anchoring position. Set bottom anchor. href pane, we are setting the anchor in the bottom, but for VBox pane, we are setting the anchor towards top and right. After that, everything is same. Now if I run this, you can see both controls. So HBox is anchored here in the lower left corner, and VBox is anchored on upper right corner. Now I am moving it, and you can see how these two behaves together. Alright, this is the use of anchor pane. Just now you saw the demo. Thank you for watching. Bye.